In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate the warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited mind sharp and keen, with a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Dive in deep and search for more. In the ring we stand tall, words are blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave, every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited minds sharp and keen, with a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena there's no chance to escape the vibrant lore. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Will be heard. Will be heard.
Spartans! What is your profession?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Spartan SU Network. This is the show of shows. Of course, we're talking about a Spartan Arena. This is a doozy, and I have some guests, some co hosts in the back. I can't do this by myself without you guys and these guys. So let's get the biggest person I know, the biggest speech person. He comes with knowledge. And of course, we're talking about Mr. President. Mr. President, how are you tonight?
I am well. I am well. I'm
All right.
wearing my military fatigue, so in
Nice.
case of a war breaks out.
Yo, Joe. Let's get our next guy in here. Of course, we're talking about my Groot buddy. This never gets old. This never gets old. David, I got one thing to say to you.
You've reached your limit on talking. Shut the fuck up.
David, my man, how are you tonight?
Let's see. I'm in between the dark zone and the red zone and the rage zone. And all I'm trying to do is keep that demon locked in.
Hmm. So, gentlemen, we're from three generations here. And I feel we need to have this conversation tonight. The war of generations. The reason I think
How
we
do
need to
you
have
say? How do you count three?
you're one. David is from the Stone Age, and me.
Oh, David and I are Gen X.
You didn't get
Bingo.
my
I
well.
get
If
the
you count
joke, but
me, I'm from the in medieval times technically.
Mm,
Should I get my helmet? Should I get my Spartan helmet?
spare us.
and you forget there's
All right.
Moses who was there from the beginning of time. He's not here.
I actually invited him. In my bad. First of all, I want to apologize for everybody. We started a little late because I was in the last minute meeting, so I had to wrap that up. I did reach out to our pain. I know it was the last minute. Hopefully, it shows up. I also reached out to Coach, so hopefully they're able to jump in and give us a little idea on them. But don't you think it's a little bit of a war during the different generations? A little bit. If you want to go first with that question.
I like to answer that question. When we come to war generation, it's something that I pay attention to, and it seems to be a common thread going across the globe, depending on what brought about the issue. In North America, there seems to be a disconnect within the black community based on abandonment. We talked about it from yesterday's show, which is something I've been made aware of for a good long while. In some other region of the world, it's more so about leaving behind a boatload of issue that could have been resolved by their generation, but they chose not to. We create a level of resentment. The way things are becoming these days is something that got me question. In this war generation, would it create a great divide whereby either party be left to defend themselves? 'Cause when the disaster that are coming to take them both out, there's nothing they can do about it? Or would they force them to look at themselves and see, you know what, they need to make amends and fix certain things? Because from what I'm seeing right now, to be honest with you, I pay attention to the news on a global scale. Even though the news does not concern me, I have to because I can't turn a blind eye and say "Hey, it's not my business," not realizing it can someone walk on my own doorstep. Sometimes I learn from my uncle. Always pay attention to your surroundings because you never know what can pop up without a second notice. And sometimes the division we have among different generations, it can breed some dissension or it can bring some severe disaster without you seeing coming. That's my idea on that.
All right. So, what's your question again?
Do you feel that it is a war between the different generations?
War is a strong word. Um, I think war is purpose of war is basically to defeat or repel an enemy. Um, and I don't, I'm certainly not there yet, but thinking that we're at war, so to speak, with the other generations. But certainly, it is contentious. It is a time of tension between the generations, and respectfully, I think older generations, including ours, the Gen X, have a lot to do with that. Um, in that, I think that so I think that's I think that's one element of it. A whole thing, boomers and millennials, I think, are primarily responsible, of I am one of them. Second, the technological revolutions, and thirdly, the economic revolutions that have come from the technical revolutions. I think all those three things have created a greater divide between generations, and so I think that's really what's at play here. And but I think again um, those revolutions, if you will, again, baby boomers and Gen X created those. So I mean, the last 50 years of technical innovation that has taken place, that has been driven by capitalism, has led to a lot of the dysfunction. No investment in the the younger generations, which is a pox on all of us, because you should always be looking to. I mean, biology mandates that the next generation that comes up, I don't care if you're an amoeba takes care of its next generation better than human beings do, because the next strain of a bacteria, a virus, whatever you want to call it, is supposed to be stronger and more resilient than the last one. But certainly, because of technology, because of the way things have gone, the older generation is trying to hang on to its position and its power, and it weakens the next generation, and then wants to blame that new generation for the dysfunction that has been caused. So I think that's really where this is. So for me, I'm not at war with anybody. I take the brunt. And my thing is, certainly with young generations, if I can, I try to build a bridge. And if anything, if I can give, and just the fact that I have three daughters, if I can give them any insights to help them live in the generation that they're in, rather than trying to replicate what I did in my generation, I think we all be better off. So I think this divide here, yes, I think younger people certainly would do well to listen to um, older people, more experienced people. But at the same time, older people, you have to accept that this isn't your mother's generation anymore. And all this back in the day stuff may not help this new generation. So I think we have to, again, so a lot of this I think is I go back to on us. But so I'll build that narrative throughout the conversation. But that's sort of like my opening salvo on it, and I can break that down even further as the conversation goes on. But I don't want to hijack the conversation. Um, so if you have another question you want to go to, and maybe I can come back and break down further, I can do so. But that's my opening.
No, that's fine, Paul. It was a good opening monologue. I like that. One thing I want to hit first, start running towards a little bit, is the technology, because we forget the technology we grew up on, you grew up on, David grew up, and I did. But at least between you and David, between versus me, a little bit, it was a little different because I am the young buck on here. Let's be straight here for a minute,
Hmm.
because what do you guys have, like 2-3 years difference? I think, right?
No, more like almost 10.
I'm 46. He
I'm
should
I'm
be
55, so 9. Yeah.
9.
Okay.
It's not a big
So
difference.
would you guys at least agree it was a little bit of difference of technology for 10-year difference?
Oh, without question.
Yes, more likely.
Without yeah. Um, Without, 'cause certainly between me and David, absolutely. But again, like I said, if you want to look at, just go back. uh 200 years ago, where technology was. So if this was like a curve, like a spreadsheet. So yeah, it's kind of, it's kind of going like this, and then by the time you hit the 70s, the space age, it literally like a rocket. It just kind of took off. So technologies that took decades to get to mass. I mean, television was invented in 1932, but it wasn't until like the mid 50s, like 20 years later, before it became ubiquitous, where, essentially you had a TV like in every home. But like with the internet, for example, the curve was certainly a lot shorter to get to that critical mass, so to speak. So absolutely, technology, certainly from the 20th century, if you want to go back and include the century, but I'll just, like I said, I'll take it from the 70s. I think like, or the late 60s, like I said, with the space program. First of all, again, we split the atom in the 30s, created the bombs in the 40s, and then that whole nuclear proliferation, then it became a space race, and all those technologies that came out of that um, helped to create and forge the world that we live in, without computers, without technologies and whatnot. And I think that has certainly a major contribution to the stripes that we have, but for a different reason. Like I said, I can go into that a little bit later, but absolutely, technology has done a lot. Now, as far as the technology itself, I would say innocently. Like I don't think, is there some mastermind out there who's trying to say, um, yeah, we need to use this technology to divide the generations. I don't know if if it's as insidious as that. I think it's kind of like the Frankenstein monster kind of thing. We built something, and like, they say like them dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Yeah, we thought we had control of things, or whatever, but there were some unintended consequences from what was created, and then as a result, we find ourselves in this situation. So again, I think there was a famous line from Jurassic Park where you had the doctor. He said, "You spent so much time thinking that you never thought about whether you should." When you found this technology that, oh yeah, we can create dinosaurs, but that'd be so cool to do that. But there were some unintended consequences to that. And
Look at
so
Skynet, the
yeah,
movie Terminator.
same
Skynet.
thing. You
Yeah,
know, you,
we're even right now we're flirting with AI, and one thing we should learn about movies, like a little bit, like you you see what happened at Terminator. They flirted with AI too much, and the AI got too smart, and they came after us.
but again, it goes back to Frankenstein, Shelley Fagel's Frankenstein. I mean,
Exactly.
it's the same. This is it's kind of the same thing where it took
Mhm.
down, a lot of that sci-fi, where the computers take over, or whatever it is. It's always been the case where, again, once that genie gets out the bottle, sometimes you don't know what's going to be the effects down the line. You're looking at the present, what you could get from it. And then, unfortunately, like I said, this is where capitalism comes in. How can we make money off it? And you don't think necessarily about the long term. You're just thinking about the profits for now. And again, you mass produce it, and before you know it, you don't take in those consequences. We'll deal with that down the line. It's like plastic bottles, right? At the time, they thought, oh, that was the coolest thing. Let's create these plastic bottles. So great, you can drop it. They don't crack. They don't break like glass or whatever. But then they forgot that, oh yeah, this stuff doesn't break down. And now we got a huge problem where you can't get rid of it. If you burn it, you mess up the atmosphere. You put it in the waters, it pollutes, everything that it is. It's toxic. But we still produce it. Now I know they're trying to come out with different ways to, make safer, quote unquote, safer plastics. But plastics is definitely um is definitely something that, again, for somebody was thinking about how we can make money off it, which is that generation, again, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. But then what future are we leaving to our kids? Well, we got a planet that's polluted. We got, major waste problems and all that kind of stuff. So how they should be looking at us, because, you know, we decided, oh, this was such a great idea, and we just plasticked everything. and it got to a point where we can't get rid of the stuff, and we're still trying to work on ways how we can get rid of and to safely dispose of these plastic products. So yeah, so that's again, that's on those older generations as well. So
I agree with you on that argument, but I also notice there's another argument right behind that. Even though the older generation have done such damage concerning them with plastic, there have been young generation have brought solution how to ne- neglect, not neglect, but to reduce the effects of such things. And for what I've noticed, which is documented through history, it's a simple fact. When there is a solution to reduce the effect of things, that'll be beneficial on both ends. I'm not saying you, Mr. Bennett, but the people in your generation choose not to.
correct, yeah. Like I said, that's
And
like
it and
I said, I'll all yeah.
it's not only they choose not to. I've seen it become a practice they double and triple down, knowing that they're in the wrong and they don't have the I don't care attitude. I pay attention to the news on that aspect of things whereby other countries are now making making implementation to reduce such it to the extreme level. I've watched people take plastic, turn into bricks to build homes, turn into furniture so it won't have to be in waste. I recall watching a young group of siblings, by the way, brothers and sisters who left the US, who have bachelor degrees, have great careers, quit their job, went over to Africa, spent 2 to 3 years to start an initiative to clean the gut of all the plastic and recycle it. It took them 2 to 3 until big multinational corporate picked up on that and want to relocate near that site. It was like there's always a solution to fix the problem. But what I'm seeing today is society among the keyword, the elite in your they fight they don't need to take correction from nobody. Which means whatever damage they're creating for the younger generation, they don't care. I just saw something that I share on my Facebook page whereby Texas passed a law that want to restrict solar and wind energy, which is renewable, which is clean, which is beneficial for the community, but they want to slow it down. And when I'm reading it, I'm asking myself this question: what are the people doing in that area that elected such idiot when they could have just do a recall and have these people step down? But it's like because I know in this nation, it seems to me everybody want to turn a blind to. I'm just going to catch. Let me get the bag. You can get the bag and still lose the bag at the same time. But outside these soil, such thing like this don't go that easy. If they pass us the bill, they massive pushback. So when it's a war of generation, I ask myself, what region had a lockdown to reduce such war? Or what region have the benefit to increase such war? Because it seems to me here, there will be continued disrespect in both sides of the aisle. Because remember you, Mandrell, and a few others tried that on another platform and you trying to make peace, but give a level of clarity. Even though when the solution is being presented, there's the pushback I don't want to hear. I don't want to care about the solution, even though the solution is 1000% correct. And I observed it. So I'm telling myself in my head, being extremely logical, if I want to make amend with a generation before me and the generation behind me, and I produce a solution that is highly beneficial to both ends, and I see they could care less about such solution, what would be best for me to do? Would be best for me to, in the biblical aspect of things, dust my feet and leave them behind and let them fend for themselves to the point whereby if they call me from long distance and I can save their power, I choose not to. That is my thought process that I've been going on for the past 15 years. and now it becoming more deeper on that concept of thing because we continue to have this war generated for far too long, when it's very unnecessary. But when there's a solution available and people choose not to, even though that solution is detrimental for their health and their well-being, and their ego is more important than the solution, then it is safe to say just to leave them behind, let them be. I'm sure there are people thinking the same way I'm thinking, even though they want to be, they are known to be peacemaker or they're not trying to find solution to make everybody could be on the same playing ground. But if that's the case, how should we address that? Because we had a comment about community, and community is affected by the generation war. If there's no community, it's safe to say build your tribe and move on. Am I wrong to say that?
I don't think so. I think it's also a respect thing, David. Like, where is the respect of different generations
Respect from whom though?
from the younger crowd?
No, this goes respect goes both ways. That's the problem. We've disrespected the younger generation. But yet we expect them to respect us. Respect is given. It's not earned. Trust is earned.
Bingo.
And we lost trust with the younger generations going back to the 60s when Vietnam was going on, when those Pentagon papers came out, and then the people started to find out what the government was actually doing and how we got involved in Vietnam to begin with. That was the first time in a long time that people thought that the country misled them into war, sent our troops to war, 58,000 soldiers died in a war they had no business being in. And so all those marches and protests, but again, what did the older generations do? Oh, they're hippies and they're being bought by the communists and whatnot, and they're unpatriotic and this, that, and the third. So again, if you want to talk about respect, again, you have to think about the ways to how they've been disrespected. That what world have we given them in? The country's giving them a $38 trillion deficit. How's that? They're talking about Medicare, dropping to around 70% of benefits in the next few years. How's that? So again, and this country did a retro. I'm not again. I don't talk politics here. I really I try not to. But the country went backward, and they said we would rather stick with a certain ideology or series of ideologies rather than looking forward. The country retracted.
And to add to that, when certain people in certain generations see such a thing, they are forced to make a decision, either to stay and see if they can make a change, or to say, you know what, this is beyond my pay grade. It better remove myself from here. I remember the first migration started in the early 2000, late 90s, when there was on the news, it was reported on multiple news stations that those who left around that time and moved out of this country, after 2 or 3 years, they will start burning their passport because they never want to come back here again. And they were interviewing these people why they make such decisions. They're saying because one, I thought there was hope and change could be made, but when they realized it was better for them to move themselves from that situation and go somewhere else and find it is not only peaceful but only highly detrimental to their mental health and their well-being. They say, why should I go back and go to the same cycle again? And it depends where they go to, they feel at peace. Now you have another one that is slowly increasing in pace, but quietly. Because looking at the general public, if change not going to be made, because I always say this for the past 2 decades, based on how we vote. I'm not speaking on part. I'm speaking on the consequences of not utilize your accountability and responsibility. When you pick such things, You know you have right to reject something and do not do nothing about it and just brush it off. It's safe to say we're repeating what the past generation did before us, and we have no sayings and pointing fingers if you're not willing to make the changes.
Let me ask you guys a question really fast before we move on. Do you think the divide is actually real or is made up by media and internet hype and all that stuff?
Well, to me, that's almost like a chicken or the eggs kind of thing because I think both things can be true at the same time. I certainly think media certainly feeds in, but then there's real feelings that come out of that, and then it feeds on the relational breakdown. So I think both things can be true. What came first? Possibly the media maybe came first. I mean, basically, I mean, there's always been generational divides. Always. I mean, going back thousands. I mean, it's just normal, right? Even in the natural kingdom, right? When a male lion gets to a certain age, when he starts flexing himself a little bit, it's like it's time. It's like, okay, yeah, you need to leave and get your own stuff because either it's going to go down. And there have been times when, again, the young lions take out the old one, take out their own daddy. It is not unusual in the animal kingdom for the children of the of the lion or whatever the beast is kills the parents because all they look at is again older and weaker, stronger survive. We got to get rid of the weak ones so that the new line can go on. So
And
you've always had some of that kind of but I think that with again with information um and the idea also, like I said, I talked about this earlier, the economic changes. Like go back a couple hundred years, Pete. Let's say if your dad was a fisherman in Greece, guess what you more than likely was going to be?
Fisherman.
Yeah, because again, you didn't have a ton of choices.
That I do know. Back in the day when the medieval times, if you were a blacksmith, your son became a blacksmith.
Right.
If you were a baker, you became a baker. If you were a joker, you
In
son
fact,
became a
in
joker.
fact, that's how some of the last names got started. Smith, like a lot of those English names, they came oftentimes from the professions that they did.
it's almost similar in the African culture. Like I said, if you come from a family who are working in a farm, then yes, you'll be in a farm. If you come from a family who fight in the war front, you will fight in the war front. It was like the kid take up the mantle of what the father set before them. For like you said, like you just said, the multiple opportunity right now. But what Mr.
Right.
Bennett say, how the children or the young generation take out the older generation, it's now becoming a normal thing in the human kingdom right now. Outside the four walls of the United States, because we pay attention to news on a global scale, sometimes the young generation have passed the level of being fed up with it. Enough is enough. How long will we keep quiet until we all get wiped out from your nonsense? We heard about the term called coup. Where do you think that come about? When you have military coup take place, what pushed that? What motivated? Why was it happening? What would be behind the coup? What was the benefit for the coup? Who was suffering before the coup happened? Was a coup necessary or was not necessary? This is now becoming a thing whereby certain entities, certain communities, certain nations are coming with enough is enough. We're not allowing it to go on any longer anymore. If you're not going to change, we will force you to change.
Yeah.
And that's happening on a global scale right now. Because people, nation, community are saying, do we have to sit back and allow it to continue before it get beyond repairable? I'm talking about the sense of survival. How long you gonna keep quiet until disaster come to your doorstep because you don't want to disrespect somebody because that person's ego need to be catered to. What if your ego is totally wrong? What if your ego is bringing nothing but disaster to everybody around you and to within your circle? But you refuse to see the foolishness of your way, but you do not care. In history, we have seen that happen. What happened to that individual? You can only push people so far to the point whereby wherever that come to their mind, it's going to happen. Julius Caesar, Hitler, all these leaders and whatever you may call them. I don't call them leaders, I call them dictators in some kind of way. But when you push certain group of people too far to the point of no return, what do you think their mentor will be like afterward? When there's a great divide within generation, and either generation don't make a man and say, you know what, we're wrong. We need to fix this. It'll be completely wrong to leave such issue behind for the young to clean our mess when we only want responsible. But we are seeing in a society, well, we don't care. Let them figure it out. And when you repeat that cycle and pass it on to the next generation, how are you sure the next generation is not going to have any mercy? They're not going to hesitate to remove you. Because at the world and present time, 2025, people are taking the action to their hand because, quote unquote, I'm not like my mom or I'm not like my dad who keep quiet. No, I will react. And I see that a lot in podcasts, in the media. People are saying, F that. I'm not like my grandma. Don't you hear that phrase before? Don't compare me with my grandma. Don't compare me with my great grandma. Don't compare me with my mom. They kept quiet for that. I will not keep quiet for that. If my life depends on my survival, I would take that person out, or move that person aside, or make that person retired. That becoming a trend, which is bad. But can you blame them for thinking that way? Because human nature, you can't blame a person for their action if you're the one responsible for pushing them. But I also know if you're the person who trying to bring solution and a person refuses to take that solution that will make their life much better, then I'll say it's safe to say it's better to remove yourself and go elsewhere where you'll be accepted with such solution that will make that area, that community better and leave those people who don't want solution, let them dwindle away and suffer the consequences for it. Don't be willing to turn your head back if they call for help. Let them face it on their own. Because when they have you in their midst, at that time, they should utilize it. Not wait until you fall away and order, oh, we need your help on this. No. I saw that in a job I did at MTA. They had a person who came from a transit system from Canada who was brought on the job to fix up the entity. But they don't let him do his job. They keep on restricting. They keep on trying to handicap him. The man was brought in to bring a solution to a problem because he was considered one of the best on the global stage of making such system seem almost close to being perfect. So why hire someone to clean the mess, but you don't let them clean the mess? Did that make any sense? That when he decided to leave, you want to damage his credibility, but yet you cannot damage his credibility when he have a track record of fixing things. This is becoming a thing whereby people are now saying there's no point of saving people who don't want to be saved. Let them drown and let them wither away. I'm hearing from multiple podcasts that say you cannot save no one want to be saved. You don't want to be saved? Turn a blind eye, mute your ear, and walk away. When they need your help and you're not around, don't answer the call. Don't answer the beacon. Let it be. Because I've watched people like Mr. Bennett and Mangel who step up to the plate and trying to have these conversations between both generations of the one before them and the one behind them. and bring suggestions. I've seen it on other panels as well. I see them in media where people try to make them somewhat successful, somewhat not successful. It depends on the environment. There is a great divide, but this great divide that's happening is becoming very poisonous. And the problem is the people who see the symptom, who want to fix it so it won't get worse for no generation had to go through, they're getting put to the side because ego, pride, oh, I want to stay in the hurt. I could kill less. And I'm scratching my head, what sense would that make?
Paul, what do you think?
Nah, well, I'm sorry. David, David went on a
Or
monologue. I
age?
forgot what was the source of your question. Can you repeat that, please?
We were talking about I know I forgot.
Forgive me, because it's a very
No,
touchy topic
well,
for me.
let me just address David. Like again, yes, I know myself, Mandrell, and whatnot. Yes, we have those and we continue to have those conversations. And every once in a while, someone decides to listen. Like I said, I'm always going to keep an open door. I'm always going to keep my hand out. I'm not giving up on anybody because, like I said, but to me, there is no war. Like I said, I acknowledge the fact that yes, there are divides, but I'm here to listen if you want to listen. Now, if you don't, then as David said, I agree. Then they got to go and do, I guess, what they got to do. But I'm not taking my ball and going home either. I'm gonna be right here. You want to reach out to me, anybody? Like I said, I'm one of the most easiest people to find on social media. I don't have a handle. I'm not Bear Paul. I'm not Ghost of Sparta, whatever. I'm Mr. Bennett, Paul Bennett. That's who I am. Anybody can get to me if they need to get to me,
Even your stalker.
unfortunately. But hey, that's the risk that you take when you live in a public life and social media. I'm willing to take that. But anybody wants to talk to me about anything, hey man, can I just pick your brain for? Yeah, absolutely. And I mentor guys all the time who are in there, like, not super young guys, but guys in like 35, 30, 35, who I think that's who I need to be talking to anyway. I'm definitely what has changed for me in the last few years is I think where mentorship is supposed to start with a generation before you. But I don't necessarily need to be talking to kids. I think teenagers need to be talking to young adults who are in college or out there doing things on productive. This is we got sold that story, Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso or whatever. And in reality, that's not how it's supposed to be. Your big brother, your uncles, your those are the guys who going to have the greatest influence with you. Your older peers, but again, you want grandpa to give you, as a young person, it's cool and everything. But where's that young up and coming? Where are those young lions that you need to be running with? And I told my daughter recently, I was like, what, the friend circles that you're in from high school, well, maybe some of those relationships may need to go. Get rid of all of it. Where you're going to be in medical school in a few months. You need to get around some people who are outwardly mobile, focused, and enough with the drama. But again, in her
And
age
Bennett,
bracket, I'm not saying for her to hang out with some 50 and 60-year-old doctors. Yes, have one as a mint. Yeah, you need people who, have some skin in the game who can, give you some of that sagely advice. But in terms of the people you run with, that needs to be people who are at your level and above. But again, they're not so far away from you where they can't relate to you, but they're such where you can be inspired by them. Jason, I can see myself where they're at in a few years.
Mr. Bennett, I'm glad you mentioned that. There are people in this young generation are pushing it back against that. They make it seem like it is boring or it's not cool. But what's sad about it, that mindset is being kept consistent from on people from a different culture dynamic different from us. I don't want to say They don't follow the American ideology, which is exactly what it is. They make sure find someone who's the mentor, who's already in where you want to be, but show you the rope so you have an advantage. There used to be a program like that back in the days in the 80s. We were going to call it the Big Brother program, you want to call it, when you find someone who's a mentor in a field you want to get yourself into and they show you the rope and how to get there. I remember seeing those programs back in the 80s. There were different mentorship programs that was available depending on what field you want to be in. And they found someone not too far from you, but kind of close to your age, but who have been there for a good couple of years, who understand the procedure and the method and the routine. And they try to walk you through the process so you have a better advantage when your time comes. But these days, it's not cool. It's not fun. Whatever idiotic slang they want to put on it, but not realize there are people from different cultural dynamic than we are taking full advantage of that and beyond. I've tell young folk before, if you don't walk with that mindset, I can promise you 1,000% guarantee it going to stunt you in a way you never expect it to happen. Because it seems to me there's a pattern whereby what it was tough at your time, it become 10 times tough to my time, multiply another 10 to the one behind me, and on and so forth. Because people refuse to say, you know what, let's change the direction of where we're going with this. You could throw a life jacket to the or a lifeboat or whatever you want to say. No, 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 don't go. That this is not good. What do you know? Even when you have the information, you have the data, and you be keeping track of what's going on. People are quick to brush that advice, that one aside. For what purpose? I could never understand. If your ego is that much important, and your fun is that much important to success, then by all means, go ahead. I'm that person whereby I'm able to make it in 2025. If you don't want to take wise advice, then it's best for me to keep it to myself or give it to someone who will actually want to use it and multiply it 100-fold.
David, let me ask this question. Do you feel is it one generation had it harder than the other generation?
From what I've been observing in this country, yeah.
Okay. Specify.
But it's done in a way whereby, for some, I have to admit it, it's not meant to poor, but the poor generation on purpose sabotage wherever to help them to go through it to make it harder for the next one to go through. Like whatever ladder they were using to help them get there, they yanked the ladder off. They said, well, you got to figure it out now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going on in today's society.
Okay. What about you, Paul?
Um, I'm not sure I like the question. I mean, life is supposed to be hard, right? So I think that's one of the things where society really starts to crumble a little bit is when you try to, again, I keep going back to one of my favorite movies. I highly recommend that people watch it. The movie is called Rollerball, James Caan from 1975. Watch it because the theme of the movie is, again, if you give people comfort, ultimately you're going to have an end to society. So again, every generation's had it hard. It's one way and another. Even this generation has it hard. Maybe different things that they may be going through, but again, difficulties nonetheless. But life is supposed to be hard. It's not about life is hard. It's like, are you built up to conquer it? And have we built a generation that has been equipped to conquer the world that they're in? Or are we trying to get them to live in the world that was in the past? Again, biology mandates that we prepare the next generation with all the technological changes, with the economic changes that have taken place. but are we telling them what they need for this time? For example, in my generation, everybody was like, "Look, go to college. That's your next elevation. Go to college and get that degree." Well, now I would tell very few kids to go to college. Period. Unless there's a very specific specialty that you need. Yeah, if you want to be a doctor, you need to go to college. You want to be a lawyer, you need to go to college. But it's interesting now how the stuff that the older generations tried to get away from is now really the only thing that matters. But globalization, again, not a reality in my generation. But now with globalization, the technical jobs and whatnot, unless you're going to get into AI or some sort of data analytics or something like that, I wouldn't even be comfortable telling the kid to get a computer science degree. Because again, that stuff, AI is going to be doing half of that stuff. Chat GPT, these guys don't know how to program anymore. They ask Chat GPT, write me a program to do this and that. So again, so where's the money? It's in the trades. Plumbing, electrical, trucking, at least for now, until they get them automated trucks on the road. But I'm just saying, but it's interesting how the manual jobs, those highly skilled but yet manual jobs, are the things that that are where a lot of the money is. So again, I'm not going to be running to tell a kid if a kid doesn't want to go to college. If one of my kids said I didn't want to go to college, fine, don't go to college. But you still got to tell them what you want to do though, because
My
the
only little
only
pushback, my only little pushback with the trades is, and I saw with me, and I'm seeing it again with HVAC. Everybody says, become a mechanic. There are so many jobs out there. Excuse me, and so many jobs out there. By the time I was done with my college trade, the field was so oversaturated mechanics, you couldn't get a job if you want to work for free. The same thing is happening with HVAC right now. The work I just talked to the kid I know on my job. He's one of my prep cooks. He has his HVAC, and he goes, "Pete, I can't get a job. I have all my certifications. I'm getting my plumbing certification. I got everything. It just the job field get oversaturated sometimes.
Mm.
That's the only little pushback I have in trades.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to do your due
Oh,
diligence
you're
in
next.
terms of where the the trends are going. But I'm just saying, but for a kid to go to college with a liberal arts degree, if my daughters came to that, I would tell them I'm not paying for that.
Yeah, like
So
for example, David, you're next. Give me 1 second, all right? I knew a guy who got his political science degree. I'm like, what the fuck is a political science degree? He goes, I don't know. I'm never using it. He's in sales now. So that's David. You're up.
I'm glad you mentioned the trade thing because that same issue between that about the trade. But what I noticed, I went to trade school for computers. I've seen that they're trying to change what is relevant, what is not relevant when it comes to trade school. What somebody told me in one day trade school, it made me think completely different. Yes, this country trying to change what is relevant when it comes to trade. But what I would construction, either HVAC, what in
David, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that last statement?
managing position and share. Can
David,
you hear me? Can you hear me? Right?
yeah, you were breaking up that last part. Can you? Yes, I can.
Yeah,
But your
what I was
screen is skipping a little bit. That's
told.
yeah.
I hope I'm stable right now. What I was told that the
Yeah.
trade, yeah, you learn now. They're very valuable. It's just that the industry leaders here are trying to push trade out as if they don't need it, but they don't realize these people trade are far more valuable outside of this country than they even imagine, especially in construction right now. Because I
Mm,
watch how the Chinese industry in construction are leap and bound far beyond us, more than a decade, and then they're doing things that we thought was impossible end up being possible of doing so. And it's not AI that is pushing that. It's engineering of the human mind that is pushing it. The problem here, we in a society whereby those higher up looking for ways and means to maximize their profit and reduce the workforce so they can have more money in their pocket,
mhm,
which is why they're going toward to AI. I wish them the best of luck with that part
yeah. Well, I mean,
because
one is the I guess the idea and the other is the means, right? So I mean, you could say it's not AI, but again, these companies are spending billions on developing AI. So you want to, I agree. You don't want to blame the hammer, but the hammer's doing damage. So so
I
I
get
don't think,
that, but I
yeah,
also believe there could be a level of overreach when you go too far to the point whereby motivated by greed, you want to find any loophole to continue to drawing out more money to your pocket and less to the people who build your company. If that's the path you are taking, then by all means, I wish you the best of luck.
mm,
Because the world we live in have a way of making people wake up.
mm,
When you're that greedy to the point whereby you want to, I don't care, you want to squeeze as much money you can out of the society to put in your pocket, then the Bible says, for the love of money, which are all kind of evil. So what come down
yeah.
the pipeline, you deserve every bit of it.
Well, it gets down to
So what?
capitalism again. That's why I talked about that early on. Capitalism has driven much of this technological advancement again with the short sighted goal again of profit making profits,
Hmm.
but it hasn't generated the long term benefit. Now again, not to get political again, but communism hasn't worked either. I mean, we've never had a truly communist system ever,
I'm aware of
because
that too.
communism was supposed to be the end all be all to kind of solve all that, and everybody just sort of works for the good of everything. But again, you see in communist countries, you don't see that wealth sort of spread across the board either. So
And I'm
I
aware
think,
of that.
yeah. So
I
human
think that's the
beings, just in general, have it's always been a small group of people who've been in interest. Either it's the government's interest or it's the corporate interests that have always taken precedence to the detriment of everybody else.
and what I know that there's some country that must have found a solution, but we never hear from them because one, they figure out the balance between both sides of things. You
Yeah.
can't
Well,
go to the extreme.
someone's going to lose. I mean, that's the problem with that's the lie that capitalism promised. Capitalism, Keynesian economics, the invisible hand was supposed to be such where it would breed competition to create better, more efficient goods, and everybody would benefit from that competition. But the way it's done, capitalism, the way it's done, it squashes competition. It
Bingo,
rejects new ideas. It keeps
bingo,
things down so that the current structure can stay up. So again, so the idea is again, the whole idea is build a better mousetrap,
and
but
this
they
where
don't
this
want a better mousetrap built.
and this why certain society are pushing back against that because they are watching longer to understand we don't need that ideology on our soil. So that being said, you can take your stuff, you can take whatever belongs to you and walk out. We don't need you here because we want to do something completely different from that. And like I said, I read history. Whatever that go to the extreme to the left or to the right always fail. If you're not trying to find a balance to that, then as history has foretold what's going to happen, you're going to be replaced, and it's going to be real bad if you be replaced with extreme violence based on how extreme you're pushing such narrative. No one can control fate, not even me.
Mhm.
And I'm very aware of that. But when you have people going too far with it, I've got to remove myself because I don't want to see whatever disaster that come along with it. I ought to be far away from it than being nearby it. Because when you don't want to remember what history has said, what is going to happen, other society before you has suffered great consequences because of that, and you brush it off as if it never. Like I said, I want to speak politics, but I studied American history, and this the third time they pushed tariff. It never worked for this country in this
Mhm.
capitalist society.
Mhm.
But they want to act like history has never been documented. So I've scratched myself in my head. I'm like, is it
A
me?
new subscriber.
Is it me, or they rather bump their head on the wall even though their head is bleeding and they want to continue to do it regardless? It's like, why stop them? Just let them be.
And he has a good point there. Listen, things are things happen for a reason, certain ways, but we don't understand why it happens like that. Make sense?
No, I see. Where you going with that?
Okay, so the tariffs thing. There is a reason other presidents have not done it, and all of a sudden we're doing it, and it now is going to cause more financial stress than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's unless you just gonna think that we can just wait them out, that you got to go through this sort of short term suffering for long term benefit. But again, the unintended consequences is such that you think that doing things. I mean, you can't think in a bubble, you know. But again, I don't want to get sort of too far into that. So I want to stay on the topic of
No,
the
no,
show.
I don't need that. I just want to bring
Yeah,
my
I
two
got you.
cents
I
in that.
got you. But you did raise a question, and I guess I can ask it here.
Yeah.
Has technology brought the generations closer or pushed them further apart? I would say it pushed them further apart, but again, I think this might be a good segue for me to kind of give a breakdown here of kind of where how we get here. All right, so again, if you go back again up to maybe about 150 years ago, human beings kind of learned how to do things through experience. Like, you had some people all the way back in the day, they ate a bunch of plants that they didn't know what they were eating and they died from it. And then they said, oh, I probably shouldn't have eaten that. They did it enough to say, okay, we have an idea of how these things work and how these things don't work. So experience, that takes time. That takes energy and effort. And you're going to probably take a lot of failures. But then there's another method. Once you kind of know some things, then how information used to be transferred from one to another was through either so the goal, I say, let me before I go there. The goal is craftsmanship. That's the goal. You learn enough, you get experience enough through your knowledge and what you've been able to do, and you get to a point of craftsmanship. And that was the goal of every person, to get to craftsmanship. I don't care if it's how to cook or how to be a metal worker or whatever it was, a fisherman, whatever it was. You became a craftsman of what you were doing. How you then got the knowledge transferred from one to another. It was either through apprenticeship, sonship, or discipleship, depending on the discipline. And that used to take time. It would take you years if you worked as a fisherman, if you worked in your dad's shoemaking shop or whatever it was. They started you young. Again, sonship. You started as a kid, 6, 7 years old. They brought you in on whatever they were doing, farming, whatever it was, and you did certain things and you learned over time until you got to a point where you knew enough to then start doing your own thing. So either you got a cut of the business, or if at the time, if I'm the father and if I want to retire, you get the business. And I go off on my merry way and I go off and retire and I have my, lay on the beach in the sun or whatever, and I just enjoy my retirement. That's how it used to work. So information, it took time to transfer skill and talent. It took time. Yes, there were certain things you could learn in a book, but again, repetition over time is how you got good at things. That what technology has done is that it has shrunk, and also in that process is how you built relationships. So again, to the question, okay, has it driven generations apart? No, that's how you got tight, because you were going to be in the woods with in the woods with somebody working on this stuff together. That bonded not only fathers and sons, but tribes and peoples, and that's how you became a people. But technology, what it's done is it has shortened the learning curve to such a degree that a lot of young people are like, well, I don't have to spend 10 years being your disciple. I can go and get this information at the touch of my, at my fingertips. And so, again, that's a short term goal. And you're right. You can get information by Googling, by watching YouTube videos and things of that nature. You can certainly do that. But then something gets compromised. You don't know patience. And you don't understand and appreciate the process of what it took for those people, those scientists, Newton, Galileo, all those scientists, Einstein, all those guys, what they did to discover these things, the process which they went through to prove the theories of relativity and have it critically assessed and go through all that. The biggest thing now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You got this beef going on. This actor, Howard, what's his name? Guy was in the first Iron Man. Howard, what's his name, David? Terrence
Howard,
Howard.
Terrence
Terrence
Howard.
Howard.
Yes, yeah.
So Terrence Howard's on some new stuff right now. That he's got some scientific knowledge that he's wrote this white paper, and he's going around talking about how he discovered this, that, and the third or whatever. And he had Neil deGrasse Tyson look at it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson surgically took him down. And Howard was feeling a certain way. That's like, oh, well, certain people have been laughed at or whatever because of their stuff. But no, Tyson's point was you didn't even go through the process. You just wrote some stuff that sounded good to some people, just like a lot of these flat earth people. You went around saying, oh, this sounds good and it makes sense. Was it ever critically assessed by a body of people? That's why, again, it takes a lot to be a doctor. It takes a lot to be a lawyer, because you have to have peer review, and you have to go by for some people who will shoot you down.
And
Oh my God!
Big Brother Bennett, now they want to shorten the process of being a lawyer. They don't want people to go through the rigorous test. And
They think just because I can Google and all this law, now I can advise people and I can practice law, or I can do legal stuff. No, you shouldn't. There's a reason law school should be hard. Law school should bleed out a bunch of, just like medical school should be hard. I pray that my daughter can survive the gauntlet that she's about to go through. I pray that she does, but I don't know.
I'm
But
glad
it's
you said,
supposed to be hard. You
Big Brother.
shouldn't be able to just go up there saying any old thing before you could just go out there. But people just think because I got this information, or because I know a little bit, Now I can just run with it.
Wow, big brother, you saying so much right now.
So, yeah, I'm shutting up. Later, know as well as telling me to shut
No,
up. So
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
I
shut
know.
up
I'm
right now.
not saying the show, but
I'm gonna defer to
what you were
Queen right here.
saying, I want to let you know something. What you saying, it not beyond correct, but it have been proven. Audi, we all know who Audi is, right? German engineering. I
Yeah,
remember watching the documentary. The people that built the high-end Audi car, they're that team with an age requirement. You got to be of a certain age to be in that team to build these high-end Audi vehicles, and it's done by hand for a reason. You cannot join that team unless you have taken mentorship from these people, and they school you to the part before you come of age to join that team. The reason why Audi will continue to be a threat to all the competition in Germany because they take serious and come to craftsmanship. And I watched it. I like, wait, so all the high-end Audi cars were built by hand? They say yes. I watched the documentary. They don't believe in having AI built because they know when you put your effort into it, you take pride in your work, like you just said. And they're a well-known multinational automobile company that put the best of the best of their craftsmanship out there to it done by hand. And when I'm hearing you saying that, I was like, Mr. Paul Bennett is preaching the gospel right now. You don't know how much this impactful that thing is. I had to learn my craft from going through mentorship and continue to perfect it, repeat it, go through the rigorous test to understand what I'm getting myself into so I can understand and make it second nature. But these days, like you just said, people want to take the shortcut. They don't want to go through the struggle. I wish I was able to change my profession much earlier and go into construction and do it whereby I don't have to take AI machine to build my house. I learned how to do it so I can appreciate the craftsmanship of building a solid home than taking shortcut to build one. What you're saying is totally true, but today technology are removing mentorship in a way where you don't need to spend 4 years to know this. You just do it for a few months and you're like you say, you're a lawyer, just like, oh, you don't need to do, I'm sorry, medical school. How many years you got to go through that thing? It's like
three,
or,
four, 8 years.
four,
or a brain
two, and
surgeon.
then two residency. Yeah.
They want to cut the time into half or less than half and have you work on a person body but you have no experience doing that? Like, are you kidding me? They want to rewrite how education get taught in this country. I'm not talking politics, I'm talking facts. But why should I listen to a person without daddy money could not even pass high school nor college to begin with? When we're not trying to pass knowledge to the next generation and yet people are preventing us from doing it, my question to ask, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Like I'm saying, but this is the this. I think part of this is unintended consequence. But it's like, yeah, but if you're gonna shorten the curve, if you're gonna shorten the time that it's got to take me in order to master certain things. Now, again, every parent wants their kids to have it better than they did. But again, I think some of that you kind of do to their own detriment. I think, but that's always the balancing act. Like I know with my kids have worked since 16 years old because we told them when you turn 16 and get a job, the level of expectation that you get from us changes. Before then, we bought them anything that they needed or wanted. But now it got to a point when they were 16, it's like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to get a job. If unless you want to wear Skechers sneakers, if you want the Air Jordans or the Air 95s, we'll give you Skechers money. The rest you're gonna have to make. So my daughters have always worked as early as they could work. As soon as they turned 16, they got jobs. Because again, I wanted them to appreciate again what it's like to earn money. And no, we didn't give them an allowance either. We played with it a couple times, but we said no. You want something, you work for it. No, we ain't pay unless it was something where you couldn't have a job for whatever reason. Maybe your school studies were such where you couldn't do something. Then yeah, we would step in where need be. But no, we're not giving you an allowance. So yeah, I think that the what you lose in the process of failure. How many times Einstein and Lewis Latimer? If you don't know who Lewis Latimer is, you need to look him up. Because without Lewis Latimer, there'd be no light bulb. And Lewis Latimer was a black man, also, just saying. But the number of processes that they had to go through to perfect that thing, how many failures that they had to have. And I'm sorry, I'm just a believer in, again, failure is we've tried to build a world of comfort without failure. That's why guys don't even want to date. They don't want to take a shot. How many girls that we had to have to kick it to? Me, well, David's maybe 10 years older than me, but if you wanted to go out with a girl, you had to kick it to a lot of girls. Now, one girl turns you down in your IG feed or whatever. Now you in a way or whatever.
Oh, I haven't said it. I'll say it again. Online dating killed dating. I like the old school style dating. Going out, having a few drinks, and you see the girl at the bar, and you say, "Yo, what's up?" and buy you a drink, and she might smack you or not.
I prefer the coffee date.
Again, an unintended consequence. Because again, the whole idea, I still embrace it now. Because all it was supposed to do was it's like a yellow page. It's supposed to give you access to more potential contacts, but that does not mean it's supposed to exclude you from doing the work. Just like in sales, right? You're always looking for leads. I always looked at online dating as a place where you got more leads, but you still had to follow through. You still had to call. You still had to have a conversation. You still had to meet them. You still had to, date. It's not an exclusion of that process. It just opens up more doors for you to still go through the process. But people thought, oh, well, online doing swipe left, swipe right, and then okay, I find a girl, we hook up, and boom, and that's it. No, it was never supposed to be that.
But that's what it turned into.
I get that. But then again, as parents or as sages who kind of went through some of that, again, my process was not. Again, I went through a lot. I put myself in very uncomfortable situations, and I didn't know where my blessing was coming from. I just knew I had to put myself out there in ways that was a little unusual at the time because I didn't have game like that. I didn't have I was 150 pounds, 158 pounds, skinny as a rail or whatnot, and girls weren't kicking it to me like that. So I just had to kind of get out. I was never the cool guy. I never had the cool car. I never had the nice clothes. I was an average guy.
So you had to put extra work in.
I had to put extra work in. That doesn't change for anybody. In today's market, people talking about they can't find jobs or whatever. How many jobs have you applied to? When I was off a year and a half ago, when I was looking for another job, I put in at least 5 to 10 applications a day. That may be netted maybe less than 10 interviews. And the job that I got, I didn't even apply for. So for me, that's a spiritual thing with me. I'm like, all I know is I do the sowing. God does the growing. I just know I just got to sow. I just got to put it in. If it's 1 or 100. When I was looking for my wife, I said, I'll talk to 99. If I get 99 no's, that's a good thing. So again, that doesn't change for anyone. And that's the only thing I would advise a Gen Z or younger in terms of that product. If they came to me, if they wanted my advice on something, if you think you're just going to pick and choose your opportunity, you may find yourself lacking. I'm not telling you that you got to live in my world or do certainly what I did. If you want to try it, you can. I don't know if even my method would it even work in 2025. I have no idea. But I am saying though that again, you still that there is no substitute for hard work, just like training. Training, I don't care if it's 1825, 1925, 2025. If you want to build muscle, you have to break down muscle tissue. All these fancy workouts that people are doing, what squatting on medicine balls and kettlebells and all this kind of stuff. I'm seeing these people do this stuff. No muscle. I'm sorry. If you want to build muscle, compound, control movement with sufficient weight to work the muscle to failure, give yourself the proper rest and recovery to grow. You're not getting around that. I don't care what fitness machines they come out with. There's no substitute. If you want to build muscle, you must break muscle fibers down through working them beyond their capacity and then give yourself the proper rest and nutrition to recover. It's pretty simple. It's hard and it hurts as you're doing it, and you're going to be sore after it.
Some things you gotta stick to the old school way. It works.
Well, it's just, I don't even like to even call it old school. I'll say this, it's science. I mean, yes, the science changed, the science evolved. Yes, things that people believed in the scientific community that have changed. Yes, things are allowed to change, but those things change through again whatever theories or new ways that you're doing things that has to be tested, and you're gonna have to go through a cauldron in order to prove and demonstrate that those things are true or not. So a lot of people say, "Well, science can't evolve." Yes, science can change. Yes, what we thought a few years ago, yeah, we can change that. All this thing about well, science changes all the time, so you can't trust it. No, the fact that science does change is the reason why you should trust it.
Because don't forget, the
But
body doesn't evolve. The way we trained 40 years ago, it can't train it today. I'm using that as an example.
Uh huh.
So yes, science evolves like the body. The way you trained 40 years ago, you can't use it the same way today. The way Arnold
It
trained.
depends. I honestly, I would say no. I would say well, yeah. In fact, I would say train less. You go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger and those guys overtrained. Those guys trained twice a day, 6 days a week, or whatever, and it was too much. Now guys train a lot less, but more intensely, and obviously the drugs have it certainly
now
improved.
I want to
But certainly
interject here.
there's things that have changed over time. I would certainly say that as we got better with it. But again, but just like the science, again, our minds should change too. But you got these people like, oh, we need to stand on these foundations and whatnot until you find out that the foundations
I
weren't
believe that
what you
what you're
said they
saying
were.
totally correct.
Go ahead, David.
I think you're correct on that part. But I think the issue is this. There are people looking for a shortcut to get the result, but they don't realize science is all about applying the principle that make it work. There are people, I saw a video, a bodybuilder who showed that there are people who have a different work regimen that still give them the same strength they have, but the muscle mass not the same. Rock climbing. Rock climbing is not an easy sport. It takes a lot of discipline to pull your own body mass to climb to great height and have great control. And you have people doing it with their bare hand. They pull someone who's an actually rock climber to lift the same weight they were lifting. And he was lifting it easy with no problem. They couldn't understand how, but the guy told him, I work on my natural body weight because it's much harder to control your natural body weight when you're at a certain height. You have to discipline yourself to have complete control of your body. 'Cause if you don't and you slip, there's a level of discipline applied to such fundamental in that. But what you mentioned, Mr. Bennett, is totally to people looking for a shortcut. I get
Yeah,
a
and
peak,
I think
whatever you want to call it,
but yeah,
lose weight.
I think people always look for the shortcut. The problem, the thing was back then, the only shortcut was those things I talked about. Apprenticeship was the shortcut. Discipleship was the shortcut. The family that you were born into, that was the shortcut.
Paul,
But
I'll
when
give you
you
a better
gave people
example.
options, Then they said, look, we can do things, we can do things differently. And especially when it came to the whole idea of the family business, again, when you're presented with different ways of living, like again, the fisherman example I said earlier. I mean, if that's all you're around, but what happened if you said that, you know what, I don't want to be a fisherman like my dad did, or I don't want to do what my ancestors did. I want to go to school. I want to be a doctor. I want to do, and in those conversations that were certainly uncomfortable at the time. But the question is, did the families did they support the decision for someone to go into another direction, or did they insist that no, you must do this? And what kind of frictions did that cause as far as the generational divides when there's an opportunity, there's a world out there where you may think that, hey, there's things I want to explore, and your family's saying no. Now again, there's a balance to that. Like if you say, look, I just want to paint art and whatnot, it's like I still have floors, I still have baselines. I think as a functioning adult, you must be able to have the ability, the ability to live independently. I think that's a goal of every adult. I don't care what your vocation is, but you should at least be able, not to say that you will live independently. I don't mind families living together. I don't mind multi-generational. I don't mind the village. I don't mind that. But you should at least be able to, if I wasn't here for my daughters, I was like, okay, can you guys take care of yourselves? That to me is how I measure my success as a parent. That I've raised kids who can live and function independently in the world. If I haven't done that, then I failed as a parent.
And you're right, Paul, because you have to be able to function first before anything else. I remember in the 90s, in the early 2000s, remember the little pills that used to come out? You take this pill today and you lose 20 pounds in a week or some
Mhm.
shit like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Right.
The fat burners.
Right.
There's no shortcut in any of this stuff. The only shortcut is put your nose down and grind away. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, by that said, any shortcuts we do is not going to work. We have tried every possible way, it doesn't work. And I think that's what some people think the new generation lacks motivation, lacks drive, lacks the fire. Because everything's there, fingertips. You type something away, boom, boom, and you get your information. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But when are they going to start thinking for themselves? The question is now. What do you guys think?
I think we still have to draw a line between the process and the vehicle. So I think people have a lot more options as far as the vehicle that they want to get behind. Now the process is still going to be the same. Look, I don't care if you make your money through a traditional job, you want to do crypto, you want to do whatever the vehicle that's in front of you. Remember back in the 90s when video gaming really started to come on board, and you had these guys who were literally like, bump school because I can make $150,000 a year playing video games. ESPN used to have video game segments, even though it's not technically a sport. But you basically went around the mobile truck with the finished prize at the end was $150,000. Here it is. I'm trying to get this degree to make $50,000. You're telling me I could play video games and make $150,000. Now, again, you can try that. And certainly some people probably have succeeded at it, but the process is still the same. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to grind on? You're going to have to grind if you want to do that. You want to be a content creator full time? You got to be relentless. It's a
We are.
full-time job. It's 7 days a week. It's
Oh,
no days
absolutely.
off. It's none of that.
Doing this channel, and you guys see how much you guys know how much work we put. We put a lot of work. Their meetings, their ideas, their titles. It's so much fucking work. So you guys think it'd be content creators are gonna be like 1, 2, 3, I be the next Mr. Beats. No, it doesn't work like that. It takes years and years and years of time. Um, yeah, it just I hear this all the time. The kids saying, "Oh, I want to be a gamer." A gamer.
Mhm.
It makes me think. I'm like, yeah, no kid. It doesn't work like that. How about if you? It's nothing wrong. Want to be a gamer, but pick a realistically career to pursue that for now. To pay your bills, to put roof over your head and money. Food on your table. And when that day breaks, it's only so many jobs so many teams you can join as a gamer. There's so many video games. Same
Mhm.
with sports. I want to be
Mhm.
the next, Tom Brady, and that's great, and Danny. But again, there's only so many teams out there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's again a product again of the choices that people have that they want to pursue. And to what extent do we indulge them in terms of doing so? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like I said, back in the day, fishing was your only option, or iron work, or whatever it was, where you got a job at the mill or at the refinery, and that was just how life has as you seen it. But again, people who
And
go into
listen,
business,
and when
most
people
businesses
said,
fail within 5 years.
and when people said, "I want to get out of this town," it was ludicrous to hear that. Now it's common to hear that. I want to do something different. I want to do something better. There's nothing wrong with that. But back then it was ludicrous. What's wrong with you? You're not gonna date the girl down the street. No, that was ludicrous back then. Now it's common. It's common to travel. It's common to go out. It's common to meet people from different cultures. Back then it was not.
Yeah, yeah. You got to ride that line between again what you are. Like I said, the vehicle and the process. Yeah, there were a lot of things. People didn't date interracially, for example, back in the day. People didn't, we had a show on the gray area talking about interfaith relationships. That
Yeah,
wasn't a
like 2 weeks
thing
ago,
back in
I
the
think it
day.
was.
Now people are doing that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean and again, some of that's and I get it. Some of those things that can be limiting. If you have the aptitude for something and you really have a passion for something, obviously you want your parents or those, your guardian, your caretakers to support what it is that you're trying to do. I mean, that's I think that's a fundamental that, everybody, sort of wants that. But then again, you know, are you willing to take the consequences of such action? Or if you're that older generation, to what extent are you willing to support your kids as far as their ambitions or dreams? So again, let's say take 10 years, 20 years from now, Pete, you have a teenage son and contemplating or daughter and they're contemplating their career. To what extent are you willing to support whatever it is that they're doing?
Simple.
Right?
It's easy to rob a bank. No, joking aside. To the extreme. If it was my blood, I would go to the extreme.
But
It
what
was
does that
my
mean though?
sperm.
Because again, that's hyperbole also. It's not extreme. Like so there's certain career choices, career paths. Now I'm talking even legal ones that
Mhm.
you probably wouldn't be up for, or that you would have a hard time giving them uh, uh, the grace to pursue. I'm not saying illegal activity. I'm not saying become a bank robber. I'm not saying and I said I'm gonna say be a stripper. I'm not saying or get into the corn industry or
I
whatever. I'm not
know.
saying any of that. I'm just saying even though that's legal. But I'm just saying, but you know, I'm sure there's certain things that you would certainly want to steer your kids in a different direction. But the question would be again, you know, what there may be some things where you may say, like like I said, I already told my kids, if you're trying to go to school for liberal arts,
You know, he
I'm not
just she just said a
I'm
man.
not I'm not paying for that. You know what I mean,
Mhm.
that's
My ear shining. Y'all see that?
so that's the
It was
No, it's
one of our
shining.
subscribers, Stacy.
No, that's a house.
She,
No,
baby,
look.
can you go lower the background, please?
Be muted for a second.
All right. So her daughter went into a very niche career, and I looked at her like, does she have a backup plan? No. That is the issue. I want her to be happy. I get you want her to be happy, but it's such a small market to get that line of work. Or something in movie industry. Like,
mm,
I have nothing against that, following your career and your dreams. But if it's just such a small career goal, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. But then the unfortunate thing, and this might be again where again, if not media comes in, but also the motivators and stuff. It's like, oh well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they laughed at Einstein. They laughed at this person. Ha ha. They can't be what they wanted to be or whatever. Don't listen to the naysayers. You can do it if you want to, and that sort of thing. And that again, Tony Robb, all these motivational speakers and all these people who came out there and said, yes, you can. Anything's possible in America, an American dream, and all these things that have been sold to people that says, yeah, I can go out and I can be anything. And sometimes, again, I said earlier that again, people live at the level of their expectations. And say, so yeah, I could have a nice corporate career. I could, I can have a nice stable job, whatever. But stable is for losers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be stable. Go out there and go against it. And then you get all these examples of people who left corporate America and they decided to follow their passion. They became a millionaire. Well, guess what? You can do it too. And the reality is, less than 10% of people make over $100,000 a year. Yes, do people out there, take the plunge and do they make it? Yeah, but you're still talking about the 1%. Capitalism has basically produced a 1% top, which is only slightly better than communism or socialism. But in America, there's that again, that American dream. Every time you go by a factory or a company or whatever, you look at the Walmarts, the Sam's Clubs, the successful people, the people who built the technology that we're doing here. It's like, look, all those guys had dreams and they followed their dreams and goals and whatnot. And this is what they fashioned the world they're in. Yes, and I don't take for granted what those people had to sacrifice in order to get there. But again, is this the norm is this the norm for most people? It probably isn't. But then if you say that kind of stuff, just like, oh, well, you have a loser's mentality. So again, again that kind of talk, it's like, people innovate as if innovation's just a given thing. And people buy into it. So again, it's like they don't want to live like they don't want to do what everybody else does. They don't want to follow. There's been songs written about that. So yeah. So I think capitalism has got a lot of people. Capitalism is like a funnel. It requires a lot of human capital to produce, I guess, what you would call diamonds, right? But again, think about how diamonds are rare, but they do exist, and there's a lot of them. But again, how many resources, how many hundreds of millions of pounds of coal and pressure had to be done to create those diamonds? But not everybody could be a diamond. But this is part of the thing. Also, people see money, people making money. Oh, they got 1 million followers on TikTok. They got 2 million on Instagram. They got this. I can do that too. If they can do it, I can do it.
But it's a lot more than that. That's what we don't realize when they get into it.
Well, yeah, but again, they see again they see again they see somebody doing it, especially if it's a young person who looks like them. They're in their age bracket. Oh, that guy's 25 years old and he doesn't have a job. He does YouTube full time, or he does the IG full time. Hey, bump going to school, even though I got a scholarship for it. My daughter knows a guy now. He had a full ride to I don't know if it was one of the Ivies or something like that, but he quit. And he's doing like nothing. I was like, well, okay, what is he doing with his he's not doing anything, but he had a full ride scholarship. I've known people who've gotten to the third year of medical school or law school who quit because they just didn't want to do it. So that's part of this generation too. I mean, like I said, all I can do is I can give them generally the principles of what works to be successful. I can't tell you what you can be successful in because I have no idea. There's certain structures and institutions, there's certainly careers and things that have track records to them in terms of what you can expect to get out of it. And, they kind of lay it, like I said, medical school is pretty laid out. You want to be a anesthesiologist, you want to be a psychiatrist, you want to be, it's kind of, there's enough there to say, look, if you do these things more than times than not, and if you do well scholastically and through your stuff, then this is where you can expect to find yourself. But even then, people find that even if they go through all that, and then once they start getting into the neck of it, then it's like they get burnt out from it. I say I've known lawyers who stopped practicing law. They decide again, it's a whole nother industry altogether. So
That is a thing that happens in any field. I think you get burned out eventually. But are you not burned out doing IT, David?
To get burnt out in IT is an understatement. I did a show about burnt out a few years ago on my channel and how far some of us in the IT field went past the limitation of being burnt out, which it can be very, very dangerous. But the thing is, it's not only being a particular field, it's more like what environment are you in that either make you enjoy it or make you wish you never did it. That applied to any career. And I remember I had a female who was a nurse came in our show and explained to us how most of her patients who suffer from burnout are mostly black male who are putting themselves beyond their physical limit, but don't know when to quit because their health is at risk. But the problem with a lot of black men who does that, because they have a chip on their shoulder or a huge level of responsibility, that if they don't get it done, nobody else will do it because there's no one else reliable to do it, so to speak. So if you ask me about burnout, I already passed that level of burnout to the point whereby as long as I'm alive, I'll keep going. That's not a good thing to say. I can breathe. I breathe. But what would you expect me to say if the generation behind me is not looking promising? We have people who are staying in the workforce past their 50s and their 60s. Shouldn't be. If you ask them why they're still working, they will tell you. Where we at right now, it's like you're not gonna stop working until you time to clock. Unless you have an exit plan to go somewhere else will make it easier on your life. Because I'm gonna be honest with you guys. We're seeing more and more people older than me and Mr. Bennett come back into the workforce. It's not by choice per se, it's more by situation.
David, I'd be honest with you. Like my father, if he ever got in a car accident, he'll keep working today. It drives him crazy. He cannot work.
Yeah. I just lost. I just. Now I'm looking at it now. You did something to me. It's blasphemy. But,
You know what? I'm gonna show the. You know what? Should I show everybody now? Yeah, I'm gonna show everybody now. You know, let's take a little recess break here. See why these guys are laughing so much. Let me get back into that part. Give me 1 second, guys. So our gentlemen are laughing because of a reason. I kind of did a little thing. First, I'm gonna start with our buddy. My my best. He's gonna kick my ass. I already know it. So this is CQ now. King Smith, the fam. I don't look too bad in this picture.
No, you don't. But you put all that hair on my head.
That was the AI. Actually, you can think AI.
No. Well, who's behind the AI? So
I only typed in make an action figure out of this picture, and this
okay.
came out.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, King Smith looking like a freaking pedophile.
I'm not. I have no comment on
You.
that. That's actually looks pretty accurate.
I made a couple of them for him because he asked me to make a couple of them for him.
Mm. Yeah, those are
and
nice.
Here's David again. His favorite picture. He said I did him dirty like that. If you remember, guys, I did Paul last week and myself. So just a little funniness.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Once I finish, I upload these tomorrow night. I'm gonna put a beard on you and long hair. Go ahead, guys. Let's Okay, let's get back on track. Man. So, man, I lost track of thought. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a long day. Burnout it can happen to anybody. Even I'm actually burnt out. I've been cooking all these years, and it happens more often than you think. But how can I put this? How do you stay so motivated in the same field?
Well, for me, I've never gotten burned out. I think again, you live at the level of your expectations, but then you count your blessings.
True.
Like I grew up homeless. There were times when I was homeless. I didn't have. I come from a background that was, that I wouldn't want a lot of people to live through, and so the fact that I can be in a position where I am, it's not it. Is it everything I want? No, of course not. You could always want more, but based on where I've been, based on how I've been blessed, based on how I've been granted favor and mercy over time, I'm grateful. And I've also embraced the idea that I can only do my best. So I give 100% to whatever it is that I do. If someone deems that's not good enough, I'm okay with that. But I tell people, like even in the jobs I've been in over time, it's like, look, did you do your job to the best of your ability? If you did, then why are you stressing about it? I got a good portion of my career was like I was in QA, David, for a long time. Part of QA, we're supposed to find problems and call them out so that they can be repaired and fixed. If there were no problems, I wouldn't have a job, at least back then. So why am I going to complain that I'm finding problems? I want problems. Otherwise, they don't need me. So my expectations are such where, again, I don't set is, based on even the job that I have. Is can I do the best job of what I have? Someone, I remember a former boss of mine said that, asked me, what's my dream job? I told her I don't have one. The dream job is the one that I excel in. The dream job is the one where I have challenges. There's things that I need to learn and that I learn to overcome them. And then through overcoming those things, then I could be an asset to the team that I'm working on. So part of burnout, I truly believe, is a mindset. It's about what your expectations are, what stresses that you're under, and your ability or your perceived ability to accomplish them. A lot of burnout is self-inflicted because of unnecessary and undue and unfair expectations that the person puts on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, my so the job that I'm doing or whatever job I have, is it putting food on the table for my fam? The fact that I've been able to raise 3 daughters to adulthood, the fact that I still have a wife that cares about me, the fact that I still that I can enjoy this part of my life. Yeah. I mean, what am I getting burned out for? I have so many things to be grateful for in my life. Also, go back 30 years ago when I didn't have one, when I was in a near fatal car accident where someone actually did die in that, and I'm still here. So again, I have very little to be stressful about. I get stressed when I can't do my job effectively. And I get frustrated sometimes when I can't find the answers to things, or I'm looking for information. I can't find people to cooperate. But in the course of doing my job, yeah. But, you know, but as far as the work, now bring it on. So I don't get stressed like, but yeah, if I can't find solutions to problems or whatever, yeah, that may frustrate me from time to time. But the fact that I can um get to that point where I can overcome those things, that's a high for me. That's a pattern, that elevates me to such a level that so I love finding solutions to problems. I love helping others do their job effectively. And so again, I have very little stress. I never stress about a job unless I found myself in a situation where I couldn't do the job, either because I was being thwarted by people who wouldn't allow me to do my job, or they weren't giving me a realistic expectation with which to complete the job in. They say you need something done in a day that takes a week to do. Yeah, that could be stressful. But outside of those kind of situations, nah. But I am blessed. I mean, you see what I got. You've been to my house, Pete. I mean, please, to
Beautiful
go from
house.
living in a motel to owning a house, to where my kids, I remember my daughter, she told me when she was very young, she used to get dropped off to school. All the kids ball would say, "You live here?" Like, because for them, they from the hood. So, and I'm not saying I got the nicest house in the world. I'm just saying I appreciate where I've been. I'm thankful for where I am, and I have faith and hope in where I'm going. And with that, I don't get stressed. And that's why I tell guys when they're out of work or whatever, I said, in fact, a friend of mine, he reached out to me, young guy. He's a doctor. He's been out of work for a minute. And I asked him, it's like, what are you doing in the meantime? Yes, he said, yeah, I'm going to get my skill sets upgraded and whatnot. But I told him, it's like, what are you doing though? What, you have some downtime. What are you doing with it? Are you making yourself of service to people who could possibly need the skills that you do have? Have you reached out to your church and asked, if I got time off, say, hey, I'm off. Anybody needs my help for anything? Does my church need me for something? Do my friends need me for something? Is there something I can do? Are there some projects around the house I need to be doing? But how can I make myself at service with the time that I have off? And maybe if I devote myself to those tasks, then my blessing's going to come elsewhere, because again, it wasn't all about the work. I'm not saying you don't do the skills and do the things that you need to do. Yes, you put the applications in, you apply, you go on interviews, you do all this stuff you need to do. But in the meantime, are there productive things that you could be doing with your time in the meantime and be of use to other people? And I believe God honors that. And so I told him. So again, this is a younger guy. This guy, I got about at least 15 to almost 20 years on him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a young family. Again, he's kind of in that space where I need to be mentoring. So I gave him that. Now, what he does with that, that's on him. But like I said, but as far as I said, the war with the generations, I'm not with that. I'm honored to a degree that he shares with me. And I got a couple guys who are very transparent. If they going through stuff with their wives, with their whatever, I am honored. If they say, look, Paul, you got some time? Hey, can we meet at the diner? I'm going to, can I talk to you? Yeah, I'm honored when you do that. Because I built relationship where that kind of transparency and information can flow. When there's relationship, there's information transfer.
I agree with you, Paul, because I'll use me and you for example. When we met, was it 3 years ago? Was it originally?
Yeah.
And first we started talking about martial arts in the back chat, a different channel, and then we added ourselves on Facebook, and we started talking and talking and talking. Eventually, we chased numbers and bloomed into a very good friendship, I believe. Like to the point, I consider you in my inner circle. You're one of my best friends. Even this little douchebag down there too. So you guys are my best friends. You're like how cliche everybody says this. You're like family, but you guys are like family to me. Like you're like my uncle Paul, and he's my little brother down there. But my point is trying to get to when like I can open up to you about anything when we have. Remember the car ride to Comic Con? How much things we talked about.
Sure. And
But it's getting
again,
too.
and if there is if there is a war, I know we're near closing comments here, but if there is a war, that's how we bridge it. That's how we bridge it. You build relationship. You make yourself available. First of all, make yourself, and this is for the OGs. You make yourself available. You keep it transparent. But you keep it humble. I'm not trying to sun anybody. So this idea is like, oh man, I forgot more than you already know. It's like, nah. If anything, I want to learn from you. Because you've been to some things. Like I said, I've never been to Comic-Con. I've never been to you in the last year. I've gotten more exposure to things just from hanging out with you than I've ever done in the years before prior to that, because no one else ever
Really?
went to Comic-Con or did other things. So I get just as much from this relationship as what you may think you may get from me. Because again, I'm always open. My hand is open. And so again, that's a thing I think for my OGs. It's okay to listen
See, here's
and
my
hear
thing.
perspective from younger people, because they may have a point. They may have some things that you did not consider, or if anything, what's Bruce Lee always said, his big mantras: absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and make what is essential your own. You should always, even as an older person, always be looking to learn something.
Correct.
But a lot of OGs think that I learned enough and I don't want to hear anything that a young person has to say. Again, I put that more the onus. And because I am the grown up in the room, I'm the one who's supposed to reach out. I hear a lot of times these older guys talk about, oh, these young people don't reach out to us or whatever. No, it's not their job. You're supposed to be the adult. So you reach out. Hey, man, here's my number. You want to talk to me about anything? Here's my handle, whatever, anything you need here. Drop me, whatever. I'm here for you. We're supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be pouring into the younger generation if they ask for it and if they need us. But we expect them to come to us. You're supposed to pour into your children. You don't wait for them to come to you with stuff. You're supposed to be in tune with them. You're supposed to one who's supposed to be engaging with them in conversation and whatnot. Hey, what's going on? And I admit, at times with my daughters, I haven't always done that. But I'm saying, making a much better effort to be more engaged. Hey, I'll maybe reach out to my daughter and say, hey, how you doing? Hey, you want to grab something to eat? You want to get some lunch or whatever, and get caught up? Yeah, I'm taking more ownership of that. So yeah, I think that the generational divide can be healed to an extent, but it's the people who created the problem have to be responsible for fixing it. And it's the millennials, it's the power, the people with the power, the people with the influence. The last time, now I'm going to end with this because I think we're already over time, and I'm just going to end with this.
You're fine.
The last time America invested in young people was after World War II. 7 million soldiers came home. It was at that time they created the FHA, so those vets can get a home, the GI Bill, where they could get money to go to college. And just those two things alone built the middle class of America and produced the baby boom in America. Because again, prior to that, a lot of guys didn't marry. We were in the Depression. Guys weren't getting married because, again, how am I going to support a wife and kids when I don't have a job myself? And also the third rail was those war factories. They were turned into commercial factories when those guys got home. You had a job when you came home. So again, for those young soldiers coming back, those 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old soldiers, when they came back, they had a job, or you can go to college, or you can buy a home. And yeah, so I can afford to get married now because I have a future. When was the last time this country invested in young people? And now young people are disillusioned where they're asking, well, where are the jobs? So it's been 80 years since we invested in America. It's natural, it's resources, it's human capital. And then in the 70s, you started to see the great retraction where corporations closed, factories closed, jobs and stuff, manufacturing went overseas because, again, the capitalists wanted to make more money. So all those jobs got taken away. The mills closed, all those factories closed up. And all those factory towns like Rochester, New York, where Kodak was there was those company towns that were created after the war. All those company towns are now gone. They're wastelands now. Go up to upstate New York, go to Syracuse, all these places, old towns, dead towns, nothing going on there. And young people are asking, well, where are the jobs? Where's the opportunities? Where I do from here? Where's the future? How am I going to get married when I don't even know how am I going to be able to take care of myself? And yet we hear all this stuff in this country about family values and deletions and all this kind of stuff. Well, again, if you give people the opportunity to have a future, a productive job where they can earn money so they can get married and have families, maybe you wouldn't have so much with the deletions and all this other stuff that's going on. But most of that stuff is coming out of poverty. So you have to address these societal issues. And the course has to be towards the future, the young people. So I look at everything now is if it's good for my daughters, then it's good for me. I don't look at it if it's good for me, then it must be good for my daughters. Not necessarily. Again, we have to be forward thinking to think about the future we want to leave to the next generation. And if we don't do that, then yes, this divide is going to get bigger. And yeah, maybe it will get to war at some point. But I'm not there yet. And like I said, my door is always open to any person, any young person of any age that wants to reach out and at least to pick what I know. I don't know everything. God knows I don't. But I'm willing to listen. And whatever I have to give, I will gladly share with you. It would be an honor to talk to you and to listen. And I treat it as an honor when anybody reaches out to me for anything. Hey, can I pick your brain for a second? And several people within this YouTube space or whatever have done that. And I got no problem with it. I appreciate when they do that. It's a sign of respect for me. And so I give them everything that I have. And that's all I want to say on it.
David?
I'll be honest with you. I may not be like Mr. Paul Bennett who went to mentor people, but I've come to a point whereby I don't have the desire to mentor people anymore. unless someone seeks to get with me for me. I'm willing to give. Otherwise, I'm not gonna put myself out there no more. The probably talk about burnout. I would say this. I don't see myself stop working until it's time for me to leave the earth.
Why she's not big enough? Look.
If I'm able to accomplish a particular goal that allow me not to let that happen, I know it's not gonna be here with this sword.
Definitely some DTR.
Do I have faith of tomorrow generation?
I can't escape her.
The answer is flat no.
I can't escape it when I'm watching YouTube, when I'm watching video, when I'm playing Roblox. I can't escape it.
So if I have to be the villain, then so be it. I'll be the villain.
That money?
I might be the worst villain on the planet, but I will not waste my time, no matter what, on the effort on anything that's not worth it.
That's not me doing this. I just stop making me.
I'm not starting to understand why certain people say don't want to be mentors no more.
Alright.
I get it. I understand it.
She said lesbians in the comments.
I'm not saying I'm not gonna share knowledge to anybody.
Father is JJ.
But if it come to shove, I don't have to open my mouth and say anything anymore. If I can save you and I have a solution and I see you're not worthy of saving, I'll let it be that way.
I'm running.
Tell her to
Oh,
find her. Tell her to find
Because
her.
I've come to a point, a crossroad in my life, I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna risk my neck for nobody who would not worth with my neck for.
You guys are gonna stop me?
If anyone think that I'm being wrong, I'll have to be careful. When that time comes, I won't have any emotion left for humanity. I might be a total opposite. If I'm a total opposite, it's safe for your own well-being. Stay far away from me. That's the path I'm about to walking through right now. Would I have mercy for people who are disrespectful? No. Would I save them if their life is in danger? Hell no. It's no longer worth it anymore. That's my final thought.
Guys, I want to thank both of you guys. It was very experienced tonight. So before we go, let's go over a quick schedule, and I think it's call it a night. So on Saturday, we're going over bad trilogies versus good trilogies. Yeah, we're gonna have a little nice conversation on that one. Sunday on the gray area, we are talking about nothing. We're gonna have an open panel.
Well, now I don't know if we came to a final decision. Do you want it because it is Easter Sunday?
Yeah, why
You
not?
want to take a break and then come back, or you want to do a show? I'm good either way. I just want to,
You pick. I don't care either way.
why don't we take the day off?
All right.
So we'll be back next. So our call-in show will be 2 weeks from now on the gray area. We can have BMU certainly put a banner up and say we'll be back and put the date on there and whatnot. So that'll be a call-in show 2 weeks from today, from Sunday, and we'll be back in business. But yeah, let's pause and
Recharge a little bit.
And on to the day,
Right.
yeah, absolutely, yep.
Except that. And on where is it? On Wednesday, whoa. Good luck with this one, David. You're talking about Space Battleship Yamato.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yamato, yeah.
Yamato. Have a good luck with that one.
Eric's gonna love that one.
Yeah. That's a very good luck. I'm not gonna make a comment, just good luck. And next week, I'm gonna get a woman on this because I really want a woman. I think I know somebody. Embrace. That's all I'm gonna say. I gotta call her. Women going after married men. Yep. I have somebody in mind. I have two women in mind, actually. Except that. Paul, anything else?
Nope. Good combo.
David? David? Nope. All right, guys. This is Spartan Execute Network. I am Ghost of Sparta. He is Mr. President. He is Black David. As always, I think my mouse working here. Move nice for once. As always, stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.